Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. And Nick, let me tell you, this is my absolute favorite time of the year. Yes, opening weekend for the NFL is fun for me. It's number 2. But March Madness, it's the best sporting event of the year, without a doubt, without anything that comes close to it. And I'm into a Calcutta auctions, which for those who don't know, they're some of the most fun way you can play March Madness. Yeah, you can play the brackets. That's fun too. But Calcutta, it's an auction where you bid on teams, and all the money that's put into the prize pool, percentages pay out for each win in the tourney. So I got a Calcutta tonight, and I got a Calcutta coming up on Wednesday. Very excited for both of those. Excited to watch 12 hours of basketball 2 days in a row, Thursday and Friday. It's as good as it gets.
That sounds horrible, really.
Also, Nick, I'm going to grace us before we get to some Giants news and what this show is all about. And yes, maybe I'll put in the timestamp because someone's like, oh, fast forward to 4 minutes if you want to get to the football talk. I understand you and those people, but guess what? There are also people who like to hear this other stuff. And I've been getting a lot of comments lately about, tell us a little bit about golf, Nick. So I got one golf story for you that I have to bring.
Let's hear it.
So it's golf season. We're starting up, sort of, I guess. I mean, I booked a tee time this past Saturday, Nick, and it was supposed to be 60 degrees. It ended up being 47 degrees out with no sun. It was a cold round at beautiful Berkshire Valley, which, by the way, under new management, they raised the prices and the course isn't kept as well. And there's like all these little intricacies I don't like. There's no liquor license now. The new management didn't bring on a liquor license, which is so idiotic for a golf course. So I got some negative things to say about what's probably the nicest public course in New Jersey, if not Neshannock. But man, dude, I was broken. That first 9, I was like debating quitting golf. And that's not the first time I've debated it. I never will quit the sport, but I just couldn't get off the tee. 6 shots out of bounds, taking penalties. You're dropping for 3. You can't get back into the hole. Even my irons were just nasty looking. I couldn't get anything done but the short game. Shot a 55 on the front. Then, Nick, I was reminded why there is no better feeling in life or sports than being better at that specific sport, because it's so fucking hard to be good at. I shot a 41 on the back, and that's with 2 horrific 3 putts that I just choked on, where I dropped on the green in 2 or 1 on a par 3, and then somehow 3 putt from 12 feet away and added 2 extra strokes I don't need to the score. But a 41 on the back of Berkshire, as almost one of my best 9s I've ever played, quite honestly. Got off the tee perfectly on the back 9. Everything clicked. I don't know what I did differently. Hopefully it changes, but I'm back, baby. It's golf season. It's March Madness season.
That's excellent. So you would say that you've been choking on your short game a little bit?
No, I wouldn't, because I'm scared of where this will go if I tell you that.
Okay, that's what I collected from the story, but all right. We can move on to some Giant news, though.
Yeah. Well, listen, I always set myself up for failure with the rhetoric here, and I like that you take advantage. Let's get to some Giants news, Nick. A couple veteran depth signings for the Giants. Look, they've decided this offseason they ain't going to go in without depth again. So they signed Jeremiah Ledbetter, an interior defensive lineman that Nick and I actually remember from the draft process. Maybe a rotational player, maybe special teams. I'm not exactly sure what the plan is for him. And then Demetrius Flanagan-Foles, a linebacker who will almost definitely be a special teams ad, but maybe they see something more there as well. Any thoughts from you on these two?
Yeah, Ledbetter, 6'3", about 300 pounds, was a 6th-round pick by the Detroit Lions. I remember watching his Arkansas tape back in 2017 to really bring it full force, man. He's just somebody who is, I think him and Demetrius Flanagan-Foles are going to be just like competing for roster spots. Flanagan-Foles, he's somebody who, look, you need linebacker depth. You brought in Chris Board as well, and they can operate for special teams, maybe compete with Darius Muasau. There's only, 53 spots, right? So, and then you can have obviously a little bit more with the NFL rules, but I'm not certain that some of these players will be making the team, but there's a lot of injuries that happen in training camp. You want to be deep in the trenches. So just go out and sign these guys and let the best players make this roster.
Yeah. And in other news, the Giants will be hosting for a 2-day free agent visit. Apparently it starts tonight. We're recording on Monday, March 17th, and it will go over into Tuesday. Free agent quarterback Jameis Winston. So I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I got into it with a few people on Twitter over this because he is actually a controversial option for the Giants, I've learned, among fans, at least of those who follow me on Twitter, Nick. Similar to Aaron Rodgers, not as controversial of an option, which is funny because I guess the 2 most controversial potential options for for the Giants are the two I want the most, Rodgers and Winston.
Why is Jameis so controversial? Is it just because like the turnovers and
I think
and
people
that?
just think he absolutely sucks at football.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, and in my mind, I think they vastly overrate what Russell Wilson can offer a football team right now. But what are your thoughts on Winston? Are you interested? Where would he rank in where you're at?
Yeah. So I think we discussed this maybe last podcast, 2 podcasts ago. I have Winston maybe second for me. Like Winston and Russ, I could be talked into either. I think Winston is the more exciting, the more fun quarterback. I just know there are a lot of warts there, right? You get a lot of tape on Jameis Winston. He's prone to make mistakes. He really trusts his arm. He trusts his ability to make all the throws, which I love. That's what I want my quarterback, but you also need to dial it back. This guy leads the NFL and turnover worthy plays like every single year, where he plays over 100 snaps, plays over 200 snaps. And there's a reason for that. That's within the DNA of Jameis Winston as a quarterback. But if the Giants aren't going to get Aaron Rodgers, I'm willing to roll the dice with Jameis, maybe I would love another free agent and then a rookie, and then just see what exactly happens. I don't think that's the best situation for the New York Giants per se. I think that's why they're holding out so strongly for Aaron Rodgers, but it would be exciting. And I think he would maximize the receiving core. At least it's just those turnovers with Brian Dable. I could see Brian Dable ripping out whatever beard hair he has left after this season.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, I think if they did sign him, Nick, they'd have to sign him with the idea in mind that like we're gonna have to accept this and take the good with the bad as far as that
move
goes.
The offense, and that's like
because I'd rather that than them neuter him and make him play a certain style that's going to try to limit turnovers and help them win, quote unquote, while actually not moving the football, which I don't exactly agree helps them win. Now we've been told that story with Garrett and Daniel Jones. We've been told that story at times with Dable and Daniel Jones and DeVito and Daniel and Dable, and it doesn't really work. That plan of let's limit the turnovers. That's how we win. It's if you don't move the ball in the air and throw touchdowns, you actually don't win. So you need to get past that barrier before you can worry about the turnovers, at least in my mind. Now, as far as this goes, Nick, I'll start by saying this. If Dable, who was retained by the Giants, right, what's he supposed to be, Nick? He's supposed to be a quarterback guru. He's supposed to be a quarterback whisperer. He's supposed to be someone that gives us an advantage from that standpoint, right? So this is where it starts for me with Jameis. Like, he should be able to work with him and help him become a better player, become the best version of who he is, similar to how McVay worked with Baker Mayfield in that short span. And then Canales or whoever it was there in Tampa really helped revive Mayfield and evolve him into the player he is today. That should be something that Dable offers us, and that should be something that he can offer us with a player like Jameis Winston. It sure as hell ain't going to happen with Russell Wilson at this stage of his career, but that should be, or Joe Flacco, but that should be something that he offers us with Jameis Winston. So I want to first start by saying that, like, everyone who says this is what Jameis is, well, then why do we have Dable hired at this point if he's not someone who can help bring out the best in a player like Jameis who has struggled with turnovers? That's the first thing. The second thing for me is for those who want Russ over Jameis, first of all, I hope you watched Russ, because Russ benefited from a heavy Arthur Smith play action offense where there's defined shots over the top because teams are just creeping up and closing on the box and to stop the run. And he threw great over the top. I'll give him that. Russ also didn't use the middle of the field again. Russ doesn't really throw outs, dude. When I watch him, I don't see 15-yard outbreakers, right? I don't really see any middle of the field inbreakers. I see struggles on even some of the layup throws from Russell Wilson at this stage of his career. He's not as mobile. His sack percentage was unbelievably bad. He was third worst in the NFL in sacks created by quarterbacks. That's what Russell Wilson is right now, and he's only getting older.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Look, we all love to work out. The summer's coming around. You want to look good in your bathing suit. But in order to enhance your workout, you want to go and use MitoPure from Timeline. This is a great product. When I started using it, it makes me feel stronger, gives me more energy. I recover quicker. I'm in my 30s. I still have the energy to work out. And if you want that energy, you really should give Timeline's MitoPure a shot and work it into your routine. The great year of 2025 is your year to be the best, most energized, most revitalized you. MitoPure promotes cellular renewal and mitochondrial health to address common signs of aging at the root. MitoPure is the research-backed innovation that unlocks your fullest potential. Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure right now. So go to timeline.com/banter. It's timeline.com/banter. That's Timeline.
As far as winning games, because he doesn't throw interceptions like Jameis Winston does, he won games with an elite defense with the Steelers. He doesn't have that with the Giants. I think the defense will be improved, but he doesn't have it. He also didn't win that many games. Down the stretch, they lost almost every game, and then they were horrible at the end of the season as it went on. And without Pickens, he was lost out there, Russell Wilson. So I'm just confused at what Russell Wilson is. I think there's an image in people's minds of what he was and what he is because he's done it in the past. He's not that player anymore. And even when he was that player, he never cooked when they tried to go pass first. He only cooked when they had the Legion of Boom defense and they went heavy play action, similar to what the Steelers did last year.
So what type of meal would you say Russell Wilson did cook when he was cooking at his peak?
This is a question for you, Nick.
That's a question for me? Oh,
yeah, I don't come up with this type of stuff. This is your type of.
That's my type of stuff? Okay, well, I would just say that it was, I don't think it was terrible. I don't think it was a terrible meal. It was possibly a Hall of Fame meal. I don't know if it was coming from a Michelin-style restaurant, though, right? But actually, it might have been coming from a Michelin-style restaurant because it had the ambiance and the chefs that were cooking, right? Like, they were all really well, just like the overall atmosphere in Seattle. It was set up for success because of Marshawn Lynch, because of Doug Baldwin, because of the offensive line, and specifically the defense more so than the offensive line, and then Pete Carroll. But yeah, back to what we were talking about. I think you're onto something here. I watched Russell Wilson's tape. I didn't hate Russell Wilson's tape, but you brought up one thing that was undeniable, and it's the lack of escapability at this point of his career and his penchant to take these sacks that are debilitating. But the thing is, Jameis has some of that as well. So that would be my one retort, because I think I know where you're going to go with this. But what would you say if one of the people on Twitter would address you in that manner and say, well, Winston also takes sacks and is also mistake prone?
Winston definitely also takes some bad sacks. What I would say to that, Nick, is let's take a quick step back and take a reality check on the situation we're currently in at quarterback. We don't have all these options. It's not like pick and choose. Whatever you like, you can do this. This is going to be a better option. There's nothing left, guys. This is the position we're in. We kept Jones for 6 years. We didn't do anything outside of Jones. We let Tyrod go and we had him in the building. There's nothing competent left, really. There's only a few options. And the way I look at it, Nick, I went back this morning and I looked at all my notes and I looked at all the cut-ups, most of which I put on Twitter. You can find them, of Jameis Winston in his first start last year against Baltimore. And what I saw there was shit that I haven't seen from Giants quarterbacks in 6 years. I saw 4 anticipatory throws, 2 outs to Eli Moore, both for first down solutions, and a couple in breakers, 1 post, like just throws that were thrown well before the receiver got out of his break. Then you know what else I saw, dude, on a 3rd down and 5, I think it was, or 3rd and 6. Jameis Winston takes the snap, looks to the play side. It ain't there. He quickly comes off, flips his hips, and throws a backside dig for a first down. When do I watch that as a Giants fan? I never watch that. I watched that once or 2 or 3 or 4, 5, 6 times in a career, a 6-year career from a quarterback. Am I watching a backside dig or even a goddamn throw before the receiver gets out of the break to the out? That's how rarely it's happened. And I want that in my life, Nick. I'm not going to get that from Russell Wilson. I'm not getting that. Maybe I'll get less interceptions. Maybe I'll get some better throws over the top, though. Jameis can throw over the top, too. But what I want in my life is anticipatory throws on the in and out breakers. I want posts. I want backside digs. I want things that will allow these wide receivers to make plays on the football. And people who replied to me said, you're just looking at fantasy stats. You're just wondering about fantasy stats. It ain't fantasy stats. It's actual production. It's passing yards. It's receiving yards. This is real. This is production. These are things that we haven't had. So yes, it shows up in the fantasy stats. I agree with you. And yes, the interceptions kill you and you lose games. But what the hell are we doing? Why do we want to win 7 games with Russ if you believe that's his ceiling versus 4 or 5 with Jameis? What are we getting out of that? I don't think I'm getting anything out of that. A little bit more fun during the year, a fake. We're in the playoff hunt. If you really think about it, see the Giants in the hunt. We're the 11th seed. If this and this and this happen, it reminds me of the Joe Judge years, dude, where we would barrel down the stretch and be like, well, we're 6-9, but if we can win the division, if this happens and this happens, what kind of ceiling is that, Nick? It's a bad life. It's a life that I no longer want to live. It's a life I have lived and I'm done living. I'd rather have fun. I'd rather have production. And if that loses us more games, well, guess what? Maybe we're in position to draft a better quarterback next year.
And I think the Giants are headed towards that exact season in 2025, whether it's Jameis Winston or Russell
Right.
Wilson as their quarterback. But with Jameis, it will be a little bit more fun. Also, Jameis is what, 31 years old? I think he just turned 31 earlier this year. So he's still a much younger quarterback. And I'm not sitting here suggesting that Jameis Winston's going to come and have a Geno Smith type of turnaround, but you're definitely not getting that from Russell Wilson. And then
Exactly.
look, I don't want to speak out of my ass, but I'll power through here. It does seem like outsider's perspective, conjecture that maybe Jameis would be a different overall vibe in the locker room than a Russell Wilson. And I think it's safe to say that just based off all the information we have collected from the outside. Again, could be completely speaking out of my ass, but do you understand what I'm getting at there?
I understand exactly what you're getting at there. You just listen to all you have to do. I mean, you could say, yes, it's been
W's, bro.
right. Well, all you have to do is say, look, yes, some of it has been reports, but some of it has been like from the mouth of the horse. Is that a term? That's one I might miss on again. I think it's from the mouth of a horse, or I don't think so. It doesn't
From
sound
the
right.
horse's mouth.
From the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
And that's like what these players and coaches have actually said about Russell Wilson's time in Denver, about Russell Wilson's time in Pittsburgh. They didn't rush to re-sign him. About Russell Wilson's time in Seattle, some of the things we heard of that. Opposite from the players as far as Jameis Winston's time in New Orleans, Jameis Winston's time in Cleveland.
Yeah, that's my point. So I think there are a lot of reasons to support in this crappy situation the New York Giants are in, the signing of a Jameis Winston maybe over a Russell Wilson. At this point, though, man, it's more just like I want to get two of these free agents if it's not Aaron Rodgers, and then get a rookie, and let's just go forward from there. And I
Sure.
just, it's going to be one of these three. One of these three
Yes.
will be a New York Giant. Joe Flacco, you can throw into that as well and say one of these four possibly. I'm not opposed to the Giants signing Russ and Flacco or Jameis and Flacco and then
Same.
going and drafting a Milrow or somebody else. We'll see, right? So it's just pour the assets into the quarterback room so we go into next season with options and we're not handcuffed as Brian Dable seemingly has been since he arrived here, even though he was able to escape those handcuffs in 2022.
Right. And when it comes to Jameis Winston, I love the point you made. Like, no, we're not expecting it to happen, but there is at least opportunity for a Baker-esque reclamation or Geno Smith is probably the more apt one, reclamation project here. There is no shot with that with Russell Wilson. There just simply isn't. And I'll tell you what, Nick, I told you, I always talk about this, but like my default Samsung TV, it goes to like old games from college. So I've seen a ton of like Eli at Ole Miss, Rivers at NC State. And it shows a lot of the Russell Wilson at NC State, and it does like cut-ups of them. My God, was he a different player at NC State than what I watched on tape with the Steelers last year? Sure, the deep ball is still pretty close, but he used to be phenomenal, like an absolute electric player, moving in and out of the pocket, moving in and out, and then making throws on the run and just driving balls to areas of the field he just doesn't drive balls to anymore. And it's just there are a lot of people. This is the big one for me. A lot of people are like, well, if the Giants signed Russ or if the Giants signed Jameis, what is that going to mean as far as mentorship goes? Why are we assuming that Russ is some better mentor than Jameis Winston? Russ doesn't do anything from a traditional quarterback standpoint. And anyone you draft, if it's Sanders or Ward, maybe Ward, you can argue, will be somewhat similar to what Russ is, I guess, but I don't even see that really at all, especially this version of Russ. I don't think, and also I think the whole mentor thing is overblown. Like these guys aren't sitting there day in and day out, like, hey, you want to meet with me after school and I'll give you my notes. Like that's not how this thing goes. Like you can watch them take their drops, you can watch how they prepare. That's the best way to learn, I think, which is why I think Rodgers would be by far and away the best mentor, quote unquote. But I think the whole thing's a little bit overblown as far as Jameis versus Russ and who will be better for the rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with that latter point. Like I think a mentor is very important just to show the ropes to the rookie, but like I don't like there's nothing that suggests hey, Jameis Winston is not a good mentor. I don't think you necessarily have to be an all-pro quarterback to be a good mentor. I think you just have to be a professional. When you look at Jameis is carved out a role in this league, jumping from team to team. He's desirable from that standpoint. Maybe not for a starter, but people do want to bring him into their locker room, and he's had success in doing that in multiple different spots, which to me at least points to he's a good teammate and he's likable, and people want to be around him. And I can't really speak. I'm not in these quarterback rooms, but I'm right there with you. I don't necessarily look at Russ and Jameis and say who's a better mentor. I quite honestly, do not know.
And a lot of people ask Nick about what happened then at the end of this past season with the Browns. And because you look at some of the numbers, yeah, there were interceptions, but Jameis Winston had them upset the Baltimore. He had them almost beat Denver on Monday Night Football, like help them compete clearly better than Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He led the league in air yards by a massive margin on a per game basis. And that's giving his wide receivers a chance. Cedric Tillman, who was basically toiling away as a draft pick for them, started producing immediately with Jameis, lost his production after that. Njoku had a horrible season, then started producing with Jameis. Jerry Jeudy, remember him? They traded for him, re-signed him. He was nothing. It was like, wow, what a terrible move. Then he's like, oh my God, he's like fantasy wide receiver 5. Like he's just torching every game. Same with Eli Moore, another guy who we liked in the draft, who we kind of knew always had talent. I started seeing him catch 15-yard passes on the outbreakers, over and over, 3-4 times a game with Jameis Winston there. So people are like, what happened then? Why'd they bench him? I think, and I'm remain sold on this, no one will ever have proof of this, Nick, but based on everything I've known from that organization, from top down, owner, GM, I think they were wisely leaning into the draft pick. I think that's why they played Dorian Thompson, and it worked. They got the second overall pick after all that.
Yeah,
and I don't think all teams operate like the Giants. Like, no, we will never tank on my watch. Like John Mara, you should have done the voice better than people love your John Mara voice. No, we can't. Under my watch, we'll never do that. I can't do it the way you did. Mine just
wasn't bad though.
Mine just goes in like Christian Bale as Batman, but like
that was very Christian Bale's. Oh, there's gonna be so many edits after this. Oh, I can't wait.
But like I don't think the Browns and every NFL team operates under the same guys. Like you could always play it off, in my opinion, as well. We played Dorian Thompson-Robinson because he gave us the best chance to win, and we don't believe Jameis is a free agent, but we want to see what DTR is for our future. Is he a QB2? Like the DeVito thing, essentially what the Giants did with DeVito until they got pressured into having to bench DeVito because he was so freaking bad, and the fan base doesn't accept that, and John Mara himself doesn't accept that either.
And now he's traded too. They traded him to the Eagles.
They just traded DTR. Like they didn't give a shit about him.
Yeah, exactly.
He's horrible, dude.
You got Kenny Pickett too.
Chance to win than Jameis.
Yeah, I mean, Browns got Kenny Pickett out of that deal. Now there was more to it, but still, like you would much rather have Kenny Pickett than DTR, I would imagine, right?
But anyone over
that's a down bad situation. But again, that's not necessarily. Well, I mean, I'm imagining the Browns probably go quarterback in this draft at some point,
and I'm imagining they lost enough games so they can go quarterback, and they don't give a shit about winning those last season games. So again, like I don't care about what happened there at the end of that season with Jameis and DTR. I don't think that was based on play at all, and I don't think it was based on locker room or I don't think it was based on giving the Browns the best chance to win.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, dude. I can't wait for the Giants and just, I guess, the greater NFL world to figure out exactly what's going to happen. Whether this is Aaron Rodgers holding this up or the Minnesota Vikings holding this up, I'm unsure. But hopefully we get an answer soon.
I mean, I'll say this because we could talk about this because we haven't really touched on it, Nick. I saw something today that's like Giants are still heavily in the mix. This is from BBI, ass hat, they call them. Giants still heavily in the mix for Rodgers, but Rodgers wants the second year guaranteed at $40 million. I don't know if I buy into all of that speculation on Rodgers. Like, does he really care about the extra money at this stage of his career? It seems so weird to me that he would. He's made so much money, but he might. I mean, he's a human being. People want money and they want to be paid for what they believe they are. But I'll say this, as far as how long this is dragged out with Rodgers, well, any speculation about who he is, like there are even people I've talked to, I shout out Scott Wolinitz, who I actually did a fantasy baseball auction with last night. Big fan of our show, Nick. Listens to all of them. Friend of mine. And at first, he was kind of more on board with Rodgers, and now he's just like totally like, no, this guy's an asshole. Let's get Jameis. Like he's big on let's sign Jameis. And he was even before me, but before we've kind of talked about Jameis. But it's like I feel like all those people, Nick, who were like teetering in, like, all right, I'll give Rodgers an idea chance. The fact that it's dragged on now for this long and Rodgers has held all these team hostages, people are just like, nope, he's exactly what I worried he would be. And like, that's it. And like, I get all that, dude. Like, I totally do. I am only advocating for myself out of desperation for watching a watchable product at quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people are like, oh, it's desperate. It's like, yeah, no shit. Look at the New York Giants.
Why do you think we wanted Stafford? Why do you think this podcast was advocating for Stafford? This is why. The position we're in now, being held hostage. We have no quarterbacks in the roster besides DeVito, for God's sake. Of course we wanted Stafford.
And I want some sort of insurance policy heading into the draft to where it's like, hey, we don't have to trade up a freaking off the farm to go up to 1, even though I don't know if that's going to be even in the cards, or make a selection at 3. That's probably not the wisest move based on the current roster and the situation.
And I know which one you're thinking of, or it goes Ward, it goes Sanders, and we go Jackson Dart or something at 3. That's like the nightmare scenario. And I shouldn't even say that because
No,
I don't
I gotta
find
watch
it to
Dart.
be that much of a nightmare scenario because I haven't watched Dart yet, except for one game, his bowl game, which was phenomenal. And quite frankly, like I'm not even sold on the idea that like if I'm entertaining Sanders at 3, I can't entertain Dart at 3 just because the consensus rankings have Sanders 2 and Dart 3.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll watch those guys, but I'm not sure I feel that way about Sanders at all. To be honest, that he's like that you can take him at 3, but you can't take anyone else type of idea. I know I feel that way about Ward, but so we'll see what happens. But I totally think your point is valid and amazing there, Nick. It's like, can we just get a couple, 1 or 2 guys in here? And this is why we wanted Roger or Stafford. Can we get someone in here so we can play the draft from a certain way? Because even if it's just perception, Nick, how the rest of the NFL views the Giants when it comes to trading, when it comes to the draft and the maneuvering that goes within the draft, I want people to feel like, okay, the Giants aren't operating from a spot of desperation. The Giants aren't operating from that, because if they are, dude, we're fucked. We really are.
Yeah, no, 100%. And everyone's going to know it. Everyone already knows how desperate we are. And I don't want to belabor this point. We've already said it a few times, but it's like everyone knew the Giants were a desperate team when Shane and Dable were retained. And like this entire offseason since then has kind of
furthered that point.
Has furthered that point. Now I'll say this, the Giants did sign some young players in free agency that I'm relatively excited about. I think revamping the defense was necessary, but yeah, obviously they needed to do something with this roster. And if you don't figure out this quarterback position, you could just be a slightly better defense who still can't move the football offensively, and your defense is out there way too long, and Dexter Lawrence is playing like 90% of the snaps. So there's still a lot of things that have to materialize for me to feel slightly comfortable about the Giants heading into 2025. But right now, I'm just like, let's figure out this fucking quarterback thing so we can turn the page of the draft and hopefully have another 2024 type of NFL draft impact.
Exactly. And that's a great point, Nick. If they can stack 2 draft classes, I can feel good about the future. And I do agree that I feel good about the direction they're moving from a defensive standpoint in free agency. With that said, I think your point is kind of still standing out to me as a sore thumb, which is I watched a lot of Giants football last year, and this defense is going to have a tough task. And I said this earlier on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. I said, the most thing I'm worried about this defense ain't Shane Bowen and all this thing about, oh, Shane Bowen, he sucks. Like, it's the offense. It's the Giants offense, because if it's as pathetic or more pathetic than last year, which seems hard to imagine, but it's possible, then this defense isn't going to be good, because you can't be good when you're on the field all the time. You can't be good when you're not playing with a lead, and you can't rush the passer the same way you do when you are playing with a lead. And we know that, and that's a problem.
It's a massive problem, and it's one that the Giants have experienced over the last few seasons.
And that's today's news, Nick, for the quarterback carousel. It's Jameis Winston day. It was Flacco day. We talked about him. It was Rodgers. You just keep going around this carousel.
Before we get out, who is the next quarterback in line? Because I feel like they're just kind of going down the quarterback spectrum.
Right?
Once they got Flacco, I was like, oh, we're just like descending down the quarterback. Like it's Carson Wentz that way. Hey, we're bringing in Carson Wentz. And it's like, oh, what are we doing at this point?
I think this is it. I think this is the exhaustive or resource. I mean, especially after Atlanta did what they did last week, Nick, which is guarantee a portion of Kirk Cousins' 2026 salary. Shocking decision. Not great. I kind of wanted an opportunity. If the Giants brought in Cousins for a workout, dude, and let's say it was like, oh, wow, he looks like he was before the injury, right? He's pushing off the Achilles, and he had a shoulder injury too. So like now the arm is live again, and he's pushing off to make his throws. That actually, he would have shot up immediately to potentially over Rodgers for me, at least in that range. I still would have Rodgers more, and I'm just a weirdo with Rodgers. I think he's better than people think. But and I know people are dead on him and done on him, but I just have my thoughts on Rodgers. But he'd be at least the next guy up on Rodgers and way above Jameis, Russ, and all that. Because Cousins does exactly what I'm asking for. He throws to all levels of the field when healthy, throws to all levels of the field, and he pushes the ball.
Yeah, exactly. He's just, almost 40 or whatever.
He's also old. Rodgers, him, Flacco. Yeah. Rodgers, him, Flacco, and Russ. We're looking at like 4 dudes in their late 30s. If that doesn't show how bad the quarterback situation is around the NFL, I don't know what will.
That also goes to the whole Jameis point. Again, this is a 31. Right. If you're trying to find that reclamation project, who else who is an available free agent even has that type of potential? Not saying it's going to happen, because obviously those odds are not good. But Jameis has to be the one that sticks out. It's like, hey, maybe you can get this guy on a 2-year deal after this with still some sort of value if he can stabilize and just not make so many damn mistakes.
You know what, Nick? That was interesting because that's something you mentioned a lot in season. Like you praise the teams like the Bucks and the Seahawks and these teams that have like signed these quarterbacks cheap and been able to reclaim them and find value in them. And we're past that point for the most part. Like Zach Wilson and Mac Jones were the two options, right? The two former first round picks.
And
One went to the Dolphins. They'll try to reclaim him, Zach Wilson. And then Mac Jones went to play with the coach who almost drafted him, to Kyle Shanahan, and he'll try to, revive him. We only have James, like, the rest of our options, the Giants didn't really go that route. They're not really interested in that, it seems like.
There's one more, but like, I mean, it's just been so negative since he's come into the league, and that's Trey Lance.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
Trey
Oh,
Lance.
yeah.
Wait, who'd you say?
No, Lance. I guess.
Trey Lance. And again,
Oh,
nobody's biting on him. He cost the Cowboys a 4th round pick, and they just decided to start Cooper Rush. So it's just like, I don't know what exactly is happening. I do know he has a lot of physical talent, but
tons of physical tools.
A lot of very good coaches have not figured out how to get him to tick. So I can't really read into it too much. I'm pretty sure he's still available as a free agent, which isn't a great sign. So
that's the problem with, like, I think everybody, we'll wrap on this, but one interesting thing I think about, like, when you're thinking about projects, right? Because this will touch a little bit on Jalen Milroe, a player who I don't think is anywhere near the project that I was told he was going to be. Mm-hmm. And Trey Lance is the opposite of that, right? Because a lot of people compare those two. And then Anthony Richardson is I've heard, is Jalen Milroe just another Anthony Richardson? But look at the difference between Richardson, Milroe, and Lance as far as games started at the collegiate level. These projects like Lance and Richardson, who don't start a lot of games, they're way bigger projects than someone like Milroe, who starts 2 seasons in a row, plays in college football playoffs, things like that. Like that are immediately, to me, in my mind, and it's always a thing Bill Parcells always used to talk about, and past Giants, legends from the front office and down to the coach. Like, games started at the college level is a really important stat to them. And it shows, because somebody like Trey Lance, who doesn't play a lot of games in college, and Anthony Richardson, how are they supposed to really develop? Like, you have to see things. You need a lot of reps, and they're not getting those reps. Trey Lance has not gotten those reps in years, dude. Years. Like, at this point, he's basically done because of that, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, he suffered that devastating injury too when he was that his rookie year, or I think it was second year?
Oh no, second year. He was a bench his first year. Yeah, second year.
The second year, and then Brock Purdy just fit the system so much better for what Kyle Shanahan was doing. So there are other young players like that, but just to go a full 360 here, I do look at Jameis and I say, you have shown something through your career. We know what your issues are. You're not a perfect prospect. If that can be reined in by a supposed quarterback guru, Brian Daboll, maybe we can get you back to how you played when you were in Tampa, only without the stupid errors. And then you have a starting quarterback right there.
Right, exactly. All right, thanks to everybody for listening to Big Blue Banter Podcast. Just want to shout out and give thanks to everyone on here in the comments on YouTube. Really, it's evolved into our biggest audience. It used to be the podcast, used to be Twitter at one point, where we had a lot of engagement and audience. By far and away, YouTube has surpassed that. Thanks to all of you. I see so many comments, so much engagement in the comments, talking 300-400 comments, people replying to each other, people replying. I saw somebody talking about how this is helping them get through paternity leave, all different types of things, like in their life, difficult situations as well, that I saw people discuss, like, people going through tough times. And it's good to have something to kind of, set aside and listen to. And I always look at it like an escape for not just our podcast, like anything in life. Like, sometimes I have my escapes. Golf is a big escape for me from reality when things are stressful. And so I'm just appreciative of all of you and how many likes we're getting on these videos. We hit over 1K likes on a video last week.
Oh, that was awesome.
Please, everybody, hit the like button now if you haven't already. Leave a comment. Help us grow the show, because, we're getting to that point where we're going to be having a podcast every day. We're going to be getting to the draft, where we really thrive, in my opinion, Nick and I. And so we really want to juice it up, the algorithm, before getting there.
Yeah, we want to get over 10K before the draft. And
that would be nice.
Over 9. So after the draft, after all the draft coverage, the videos we're going to come out with, all of that, it would be nice if we can get up to 11, 12 or something like that, just to have this channel grow. And Dan and I put in a lot of work, and we're glad that you guys appreciate the product. So thank you so much for commenting, liking, and subscribing.
Yep. Completely with Nick on that. And we haven't done a lot of like guest stuff yet. So we're gonna start to get into that soon.
Yeah.
Sai, bring back a lot of the reoccurring ones we love. Sai, Schmelke, a lot of those awesome guys that you guys have enjoyed listening to in the past to give us some draft stuff. So a lot to come as we are held hostage by this quarterback situation that hopefully will come to some kind of conclusion soon for the Giants as they wait on Aaron Rodgers. It's pretty funny to be in the situation they're
Waiting on
in.
Rodgers.
It's crazy, but it is what it is. This is our life right now, and this is the life we knew we would inherit, given the actions we've taken at quarterback in the last however many years. So it is what it is, dude. I just hope when we get to that point, like 2017, 2018, 2020, 2023, those 4 draft classes, we actually get the quarterback next time, right? We don't miss Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, and Jaden Daniels or Drake May. But who knows, man? You just play it out, you keep going with it, and you hope to be in a better spot the next day. So thank you to everybody for listening. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.